Hey folks, cheers to our first month ever of negative churn. This is actually Diet Coke, by the way. But essentially in January we achieved negative churn for the first time, and I wanted to share the happy news and also use this opportunity to tell you how you can achieve it too with Userpilot, of course. So, what is negative churn actually? Negative churn happens when the expansion MRR, so the MRR you achieve from upgrades, renewals, basically account expansion, right? For instance, buying more seats for your account by company accounts, is higher than the amount of revenue churn you had in any given month. So, what that means is that more of your customers actually decide to take the relationship to the next level, which means they are probably very happy with your product. Then the customers that are not so happy with your product and decide to call it quits. So, this is the ideal case scenario and the ultimate way to achieve product led growth. Because these are already your customers, so they are familiar with your product. You don't spend any marketing monies on expansion revenue, right? Or very little relatively. It's easier to achieve expansion revenue from your existing customers and keep them happy than to acquire new users usually. So there are just basically only benefits to expansion revenue. And what is also important is that even if you have a slower month for whatever reason when it comes to acquisition, you can still achieve growth through negative churn. So, how to achieve it? Well, there are two ways, obviously. One way is to reduce your churn rate, and another way is to increase your expansion revenue. Or you can do both at the same time. In fact, you can use the same tools like Userpilot, and you can do it in a very similar way. So, for reducing revenue churn, I would say you first need to understand what's going on and why your customers are churning. So, things like churn surveys, right? So, exit surveys. Sorry, that was a perfect spoonerism. Basically, when your users decide to hit that cancel button, you ask them a couple of questions. Basically, why, right? And then you analyze the answers. Ideally, cross-reference the qualitative answers with, your session recordings. You cross-reference them with the user behavior in-app you see in tools like Heap or Mixpanel, and you try to basically bucket all the different scenarios why your different customer types churn. You then arrange them by the highest account value, right? And you try to reverse engineer these scenarios. So, what actually led the customer to the breaking point where they couldn't take it anymore and they decided to leave. And now, after you have determined that, was there anything you could have done on these turning points in your user's journey to prevent them from churning? Once you have determined the points, you basically build in-app experiences or you reach out to the user, preferably in-app at the exact time when they have encountered the problem that causes them to churn in the first place. And you do say an A/B test to see if the experiences you implemented to address these breaking points are actually working. And surprise, surprise, you can both build the experiences and set up an A/B test in Userpilot. So go check us out, book that demo now. And let's move on now to how to increase expansion revenue. So, first of all, look for opportunities to show your users the benefits and the outcomes of using higher plans, especially if you have value-based pricing. If you have usage-based pricing, then it's a bit easier. You may consider like implementing a bit of usage-based pricing. So basically, you try to increase the adoption of the features that determine your account usage, right? So for instance, if you bill your users by the number of documents they have created in your tool, then you can basically push them to create more documents with certain in-app experiences. Another way is to basically upsell them on extra features. You don't need to upsell them on the entire plan, but for instance, introduce some add-ons. The add-ons can be product-based or they can be also service-based. So I see more and more SaaS companies offering the done-for-you services in higher pricing tiers. So for instance, StoryChief, a tool we're using, and that's also on our subscribers list, I hope still, is it's basically a content editing and publication and distribution platform. And I know that they are offering writing services, which is like a very natural service for a content agency or a content based in-house marketing department. Right. So think of some extra services. Maybe you using your tool is time consuming or setting it up as time consuming. Maybe you could package that as a service and sell at a very high premium. Of course, try to, push your users to discover more and more value, right? That you can also do with in-app experiences. Basically, anything that increases product adoption ultimately leads to expansion revenue. And last but not least, make sure your CSM reach out to your customers regularly and check in with them. This will help you both reduce your churn and increase your expansion revenue. And on that note, I wish you all a great evening and I will see you next week. Bye.